Shalom Aleichem. Today's class, we're going to dive in. Why are Chareidim against drafting to the army? So let's just do a little recap. In the first class, we saw why Chareidim were against the Enlightenment. And then we had a class about why are Chareidim against Zionism. We also had a class about Satmar's unique view towards Zionism. We saw why it's also a spiritual view and also a very, very harsh view. And in today's class, we're going to try to understand why do the Haredi movement oppose drafting to the IDF. So there are three main reasons. I'm going to try to explain all three reasons here today. I want to just point that this is not my hashkafa. I don't agree with this. However, I'm going to try to present it in the best possible way in order for us to really understand why Charedim are against it. And in future classes, I'm going to give my view, maybe the Dati Leumi view on all these things. The first two reasons are not halachic. It's hashkafic. The third reason we're going to dive into halacha. That's going to be the reason that we're going to be focusing mainly today. The first reason is because going to the army makes you Israeli. Making you Israeli is a problem. Because if the whole identity of Haredi is being different from the others, whether it's Goyim, that's for sure, but also other types of Jews, becoming Israeli is putting me in the same boat as everybody else. And that's a boat that I don't want to be in. Why? Because it brings negative effects on our children. Imagine you take a kid, 18, 19, 20 years old. You put him into the army for 3 years. And every single day he's listening to inappropriate music. And he sees boys and girls together. And Shabbat is not like Shabbat like it is at home or in yeshiva or in kollel or wherever he is. And you're throwing him into this mix. At the end of the day, he's going to get mushpa from it. Not necessarily is he not going to be from, that's going to be the second reason, but the first reason is he's not going to be that Haredi person that we wanted. Okay, he's going to change. And by the way, this was the idea of David Ben-Gurion. He wanted the army to be a melting pot of the Israeli society. He didn't want there to be a army unit that is for Chareidim, army unit that's for Dati Leumi, an army unit for Chiloni. He wanted it to be one big melting pot. Every single Jew that comes to Israel, makes Aliyah, is born here. He comes into this thing that we call the army, and you come out looking the way you looked, and you come out at the end totally different. We saw this also with the kids that came from Yemen, from Teiman. The little kids with the cute peyot, when they came to Eretz Israel, when they came to Israel, David Ben-Gurion had a certain law, a decree, that you cut their peot. From now on, you're not the Jew that you were in the Galut. Right now, you become Israeli. And that means you have to start your own new way here in Israel, become one of like everybody else, and everything that you had from the Galut should be forgotten. That was the ideology of Ben-Gurion and eventually also of Tzahal. Tzahal is a very unique army in the fact that we have a Chel Chinuch, a education unit in the army that tries to educate people what it is to be Israeli, what it is to be Zionistic. And the Charedim say, we don't want any part of that. We want to be Jewish/Haredi. We don't want to hear about Herzl. We don't want to hear about Zionism. We don't want that. Yes, it might be important to defend Am Yisrael, Jews, even maybe Medinat Yisrael, but we don't want you to influence us to become any different than what we are. So that's the first reason. The second reason, which obviously is very connected to the first reason, is we want to stay religious. We don't want to learn the Chiloni ways. And by putting an 18-year-old kid that grew up in somewhat of a bubble, and that bubble is something that we created because we want to secure our kids from any external influence. We don't want that bubble to pop. And once you put that kid, that 18-year-old, within other people, whether it's Dati Leumi, whether it's Chiloni, that bubble will pop. And it's much easier to be non-religious. Sometimes it's much more fun. Is it the emet? Is that the truth? Is that the way we're supposed to live our lives? According to our hashkafa, mamash no. But that's the easy way to go. So yes, if you put an 18-year-old kid with boys and girls, with an environment that doesn't keep Shabbat, doesn't necessarily keep kosher, eventually he's going to get attracted to that and he's going to leave Yiddishkeit. And that's not only sad for us as a community or as a family, it's sad for the future of Am Yisrael. Because Torah And mitzvot is what kept us alive as a nation for thousands of years. So putting this kid in the army, in the IDF, you're basically taking him away from the Torah, from the mitzvot, and that is going to harm the future, not only of our family or our community, but of the Jewish people. The third reason, which is the reason that we're going to be focusing and zooming in on mainly the shiur, is because someone that is sitting and learning Torah should not be bothered by anything else but sitting and learning Torah. Now, it's important to look at the Charedi group and to split it into two different groups. The Charedi society, everybody in the Charedi society wants their kids to be great scholars, Talmidei Chachamim, Gdol Hador. The whole system is built in a way that they will one day be Rav Chaim Kanievsky, right? To be the Gadol Hador. And that's why from a very, very young age 3 or 4, we're going to send them to Cheder. And in Cheder, he's going to learn many, many hours of Torah. He's going to come home, he'll play a little with his friends, family. He'll go day in, day out, learning Torah. Afterwards, he's going to go to Yeshiva Ktana, and then Yeshiva Gdola, and then he's going to get married, he's going to go to Kollel, and his whole life is going to be surrounding Torah in order for him to be a Gadol Hador. That is the Charedi dream for every single child, and there's something beautiful about it. Having said that, the vast majority of people aren't built in that way. The vast majority of people could sit a few hours a day and learn Torah. But then they have other interests. They need to leave the Bet Midrash, because not everybody's built to be Rav Chaim Kanievsky. How many Rav Chaim Kanievsky do we have? 1. Yes, there are other Gdolim Talmidei Chachamim. Okay, but the vast majority are not able to do that. And here's the big problem. Because the Charedi movement is creating people in order to solely do that. And once someone fails at that task, then he's a failure. And he can't find his place. So he might go out and work, but like a very nebuch type of job. This is more true in the Litvak world, a little bit less in the Hasidic world, but also there. He might work in a makolet, he might clean the streets, he might be a truck driver. He's not going to be in high tech, he's not going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and because the system didn't prepare him for that. The system doesn't teach him high math, doesn't teach him English, it doesn't teach him science, it teaches him Torah. Like I said, there's something beautiful about that, but it's also very, very challenging if you're not going to be the next Gdol Hador. Like I said, most people are not. And being that is the system, we, as the Charedi movement, we want every single student of ours to sit and learn Torah. It just happens to be that the army takes time. It's not like a 2-hour thing that someone has in a lifetime. It's 3 years. And they're saying to the state, are you telling us that we are taking out our scholars, our Talmidei Chachamim, the future Talmidei Chachamim of Am Yisrael, out of yeshivas for 3 years? Not gonna be. Even if someone is not sitting in yeshiva or in the kollel, we don't want him to draft because we don't want him to be Israeli or secular. We already spoke about those two. But now let's talk about the way we want to create the future generation of the Charedi people. We want them all to be Talmidei Chachamim. Now let's see the problems, hashkafically and halachically, with sending them to the army. I'm going to start, my first source here is going to be from Masechet Brachot, Daf Lamed Hey Amud Bet. Now, usually I like starting from the Torah and then going through the Nevi'im, Ketuvim, Mishnah, Gemara, Geonim, Rishonim, Achronim. That's the proper way to give a shiur. Here, it's going to be easier to explain the Hashkafa davka from the Gemara and not from the Tanakh. When we do the opposite, when we're going to start from the Tanakh, then you'll know that we're talking a little bit more Dati Leumi Hashkafa and less Charedi Hashkafa. I'm not going to go into the sources too much because there's a lot of sources and they're very long and a lot of them are in Aramaic. I'm going to go through each one and explain them. So in Masechet Brachot, there's a very famous machloket in Daf Lamed Hey Amud Bet between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shmuel's philosophy is you need also Torah and you need also avodah. They're talking about 2 psukim in the Torah that seem to contradict each other. The first pasuk is V'asafta deganecha. We say that every single day. You're supposed to go to the field and collect everything that you've worked on. But there's another pasuk in the Tanakh, Sefer Yeshua, that says, Lo yamush sefer haTorah ze mipicha. We're not supposed to stop learning Torah. So how did these two things coincide? How did they live together? On the one hand, if you're not supposed to stop learning Torah, you're supposed to sit in yeshiva and steig and learn the whole day. What are you doing going out to the fields and working? But Rabbi Ishmael says, we do that as part of our Torah. Our Torah teaches us that you have to live in this world. How are you supposed to live in this world? According to Torah. So the Torah that we're supposed to learn every single day, again, there's no shi'ur, there's no amount that the Torah says of how much Torah you're supposed to learn a day. If you're able to learn 10 hours a day, learn 10 hours a day. You're able to learn 5 hours a day, 5 hours a day. Daf yomi, 45 minutes, whatever it is, the Torah is supposed to guide you spiritually, connect you to Torah, to mitzvot, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, eventually, ultimately. And then taking that energy of Torah to your day-to-day work. But the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's philosophy is totally different. He says no Torah v'avodah. Torah and Torah. You're supposed to sit, learn Torah 24/7. 24/7. You need to sleep a few hours. Okay, you need to eat a little something. Torah, 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 Torah. Nothing else. So Rabbi Ishmael says, okay, but how are we going to live? He said, what are you're nervous about living? Hashem will provide. We know Rashbi's story that he was in the cave and the Kadosh Baruch Hu provided with everything he needed in order for him to sit and learn Torah. But a Jew's tafkid, his role in this world, is to sit and learn Torah. Don't talk to me about working in the field. Hashem will provide. How? Non-Jews, they could work for us. We'll pay them. Hashem will provide us money. We'll pay them. It's okay. They're not going to be slaves. No, but they'll work for us. You know what? Today, I'll use terminology of today. Today, there's AI. There's robots. They'll work in the fields. They'll give us everything we need. All we need is to sit in a room like this. There's nice fluorescent lights. There's nice air conditioning. Beautiful view of Jerusalem. That's what we need. We need to sit and learn and learn and learn. I'm going to give you a little spoiler for the next classes. The Gemara's conclusion is that a lot of people tried to be like Rashbi, to sit and learn and learn and learn, but they were not successful. And because they weren't successful, their Torah was not good Torah, and they weren't able to make a parnasa because they weren't working. So it was a lose-lose situation on both sides. Only Rashbi was able to be Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He's the only person that was able to actually do that. How do I know this? Because it says in Masechet Shabbos Daf Yud Aleph that there's a machloket. The Tanya Chaverim shayu oskim b'Torah mafsikim lekriyat Shema ve'en mafsikim letfilah. Friends that were learning Torah, they were sitting in the Chabur, they were learning Torah together. They're supposed to stop when it's time for Kriyat Shema, to say Shema, but not to daven. When we say daven, we're talking about Shmoneh Esrei. Why? Because Kriyat Shema is Deoraita. So you stop Deoraita for Deoraita, that makes sense. There's a mitzvah in the Torah. But davening is from Dirabanan, especially the words that we say in Tfilat Shmoneh Esrei is Dirabanan. So if you're dealing with Torah, don't stop your Torah learning for Dirabanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Lo shanu ela kegon Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai v'chaverav, shetoratan omanutan, aval kegon anu mafsikim l'kriyat Shema v'letfilah." Rabbi Yochanan says, no, wait. That halacha specifically is for Rabbi Yochanan. Sorry, it's for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, if he stops learning Torah, that's bitul Torah. What are you doing? You're supposed to be sitting and learning Torah. You're able to do that. That is the sole tafkid of yours in this world. Don't stop to daven. Continue learning Torah. But we, Rabbi Yochanan, he's talking to his other fellow huge rabbis, we're not on that madrega. We need to stop our Torah learning in order to daven. By the way, that's the halacha. So I hope you didn't stop the video before. If you did, you won't even hear these words. But the halacha is, even if you're right now doing learning Chumash, you're learning for the Parsha, whatever it is, if it's time to go to shul, if it's time to daven, you stop and you daven. Not just for Kriyat Shema, but also for Shmoneh Esrei. Unless you're Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's very different. Going forward, I think before we go forward, it was important for us to see here the different philosophy. The different philosophy is saying that there are those who view this world as a world of Torah and Avodah, like Rabbi Ishmael. This world, we're created from Chomer and from Ruach. from materialism and spiritualism. Only when those two things go together, that's the way to live the world in our fullest. Rashbi, on the other hand, he says, no, 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 no. Torah, Torah, Torah. Spirituality, spirituality, spirituality. Everything else, it's not important. Don't worry about it. Hakadosh Baruch Hu has his ways to take care of us. I want to continue now, and we're going to see another source that is very, very important to see when we're talking about drafting or not drafting to the army. It talks about in Sefer Bamidbar about a war that Am Yisrael had with Midian, and it says elef lamateh lekol matot Yisrael tishlechu letzava, meaning that there's different matot, there's different places that we sent our boys in order to fight the war. There were those who were sent, this is already the Midrashim, okay, this is not the Pshat. There were those who were sent to the battlefield, and there were those who were sent to the Bet Midrash. Why? Because it's because of the people in the Bet Midrash that the people in the battlefield were able to win. If we don't have Torah in Am Yisrael, soldiers die. That's not me saying that. It's not even the Chareidim saying it. It's Masechet Makot, Daf Yud Amud Aleph. מי גרם לרגלינו שעמדו במלחמה? שערי ירושלים שהיו עוסקים בתורה. Why did we win the war? The Gemara asked. Because of the people that sat in Jerusalem that were learning Torah. Another source for this we see in Masechet Sotah, Daf Kaf Aleph Amud Aleph. Torah magna umatzla. The Torah protects and saves Am Yisrael. Another source, number 8, Rabbanan lo tzrichei netiruta. The sages, the Talmidei Chachamim, they don't need protection. They don't need protection. They don't need physical things to protect them. Why? They're sitting, they're learning Torah. The Torah is protecting them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is protecting them. Is there any better protection than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, b'chvodo v'atzmo? That's the biggest protection. Rashi, by the way, says there, Torato m'shamarto. His Torah is his protector. Now, there's a very, very famous and important Rambam to learn here. He talks about the status of yeshiva guys. He says, we know that Shevet Levi, their job was to take care of Torah in Am Yisrael. Their job was to go around to different places and to be marbitz Torah, to be teaching Torah. And that's one of the reasons the Rambam says that they didn't get an achala. They didn't get land because the physical needs were less important. They didn't really need to work. Their job was spreading Torah. So, הובדל לעבוד השם ולשרתו ולהראות דרכיו הישרים. ולא שבט לוי בלבד, and this doesn't apply only to שבט לוי, אלא כל איש ואיש מכל באי העולם אשר נדבו רוחו אותו, להיבדל לעמוד לפני השם ולשרתו ולעבדו, הרי זה נתקדש קודש קודשים. Every single person, not only שבט לוי, that deals and teaches Torah, they don't get land because they're exempt from working physically in this world. Their job is to go spread Torah. Their job is to be the spiritual representatives of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. Everybody else, all the rest of Am Yisrael, they need to work. They need to deal with the land. They need to, okay, so that's their tafkid. And they'll go to someone from Shevet Levi to be their rabbi, to go learn Torah from them. I'll go into a few places, a few sources of Bitul Torah. So it's not exactly the same sources here as scholars, but this is just for the average person. Sefer Yoshua, Perek Aleph, Pasuk Chet, V'yigita bo yomam v'layla. You're supposed to learn Torah day in, day out. Don't stop. Continue steiging. Sefer Dvarim is a very famous pasuk. V'dibartem bam, b'shivtecha b'veitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech. When should we be learning Torah? All the time. The Torah brings the fact that Talmidei Chachamim, they don't need to actually go build the walls of the city because they don't need protection. The Torah protects them. The Shulchan Aruch brings us, Talmidei Chachamim lo יצאו בעצמם עם שאר העם לעשות בבניין ובחפירות, וכיוצא בזה, שלא יתבזו בפני עמי הארץ, וכיוון שהם פטורים, אפילו אחרים במקומם אין שוכרים. Talmidei Chachamim, big scholars, they don't need to go out and work for the city, for the well-being of the city. They don't need to build. They don't need to dig the wells. Why? Because it's not appropriate for the Amei Aratzot, for the regular Joe Schmo, to see the rabbi or the Talmid Chacham getting dirty. I'll see if there's any other source. There's a lot of other sources. These are the sources I'm going to bring today in this class. The other sources talk about the terrible thing of Bitul Torah, right? Am Yisrael always needs Torah, okay? And the more Torah, the better. I want to try to conclude with a few thoughts. We started out by saying that the army makes people Israeli, and that's why even if someone is not a Torah scholar, we, the Haredi movement, they don't want to see their kids going to the army and becoming Israeli, because once you become Israeli, then you're not Haredi anymore, and then a lot of things could happen. A lot of things is also reason number two. Someone could become Chiloni, secular, say, thank you very much, Abba and Ima. I got a lot of good things from you, but right now I'm starting my own path and I'm leaving Torah and mitzvot. That's a very, very, very big no-no. And the army's agenda, according to the Haredi view, is to make people Israeli. And a side effect of being Israeli, the classic Israeli, is being irreligious. And that is a big no-no. And then we went into Talmidei Chachamim, people that are sitting and steiging, people that are sitting and learning. We, the Haredi view, we don't want them going to the army. Not only because they might become irreligious or they might become Israeli. That's not the problem. The problem is that they need to sit and learn Torah. Because them sitting learning Torah does a few things. First of all, it protects Am Israel. Protects Am Israel, protects that soldier. We need soldiers. Even the majority of Chareidim agree that there needs to be an army. But how do we help and provide for that army as a Haredi view? We sit and learn Torah, because our Torah is protecting the soldier. Not only for protection, we need Torah because that is our DNA. Judaism without Torah is like a person without a soul. A person without a soul is a dead person. If Am Yisrael doesn't have Torah, we're a dead nation. And that's really the essence. All these things about Bittul Torah, is because if we don't learn Torah day in, day out, V'yigita bo yomam v'layla, during the day, during the night, then the essence of the Jewish people is lost. We're disconnected from our motor, from our engine. And that is very dangerous. Like I said, I'm not giving my hashkafa here. I'm giving the Haredi hashkafa. I want us to think about this, because these ta'anot, this way of looking is something that millions of people feel in Am Yisrael, whether they're in Israel or in the world. And even if you disagree, it's important to know what you're disagreeing with. It's important to try to think for yourselves, where you're going to have a week or two until I come out with my next class. It's time for you to think with yourselves, how do you give spiritual, halachic answers to these questions? Have a wonderful day.